what you do matters over time. And I think there's a point in your life where qualifications will only get you so far. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies who he calls. So I had a thought that came across my mind, and this happens a lot.
You thinking? That's dangerous.
No. No, the thought is, do you ever get in front of somebody and I don't know, they just put you on the spot, and then they started out with like a really demeaning, saying condescending thing. They're like, well, what are your qualifications? And I know this will open up a whole world of some thought processes with some people. And I've been there, and I've understand, like, man, I can go straight for the jugular right now. But how do we navigate through that? What comes across your mind whenever someone comes up to you and they're like, well, what are your qualifications? Do you think do you think they really care about your qualifications, or do you think it's a pride, ego thing of, you're younger than me, so you must not know? Or is it like something to the tune of like, if I can't do it, you can't do it? I don't know,
man. Yeah, dude, so my mind's going like 1,000 different directions. So I will speak first from my experience, and then we can kind of riff on different nuanced situations. So when I think about a question like this, I'm thinking from the lens of like, corporate professionals. You're going through an interview process, all that fun stuff, and you sit down, you've got the job description, you know what your qualifications are. I was a new engineer that was trying to find work, got linked up with some guys from Chrysler, or at that point it was FCA, and then it turned into Stellantis. So I interviewed with those guys, had a great interview, and actually ended up getting an internship that led to a full-time position offer after the internship. But after that, I went to GM Performance, or Chevy Performance and Racing, and in that moment, I was kind of feeling like I didn't have the qualifications, because the job description was like, hey, all we do is engine stuff. And, it's all the crate engines, crate transmissions, connecting crews, all that stuff. So it was like, prove to us that you can, do this job successfully. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, it's like you have engineering, but then there's different like parts of an engineer's role. So like, I wasn't designing stuff necessarily. There were some things I did have to design, but like overall, my job was more like project management. And that's what most engineers' roles end up being. Mm-hmm. So the point of all this is, when I was in that interview, I remember doing so much homework just about the product and about racing and about all the different teams and all the different like crate engines, just because if they brought something up, I wanted to be able to talk about it. But we didn't really even go down that route. It was more like, hey, what was your experience in this? How did you respond when you were facing this? And it was like, more of, the whole STAR method, the situation, task, action, and result. And so, you go through that, and I don't know, it doesn't really matter what your experiences are. Now, as you get older, you better have experiences that can support the claims that you make, or you better be able to pull from your experiences to talk about them in the interview to help you get the job. So that's kind of like where my mind goes, is in that situation, they're like, what are your qualifications? And you have to justify why you're like, hey, I'm the right person for this role, that you put this job description up because of this reason, this reason, this reason. And you gotta, just talk to them about your experiences. But then your second question about like the condescending, I know where you're coming from with this question. You talk to somebody who's either in your line of work or not, but they're like, what qualifications do you have? Like, what gives you the right to do X, Y, Z? And it's like, man, if everybody operated under the notion of I have to have every qualification and then I can start, dude, we wouldn't have any of the inventions we have. We wouldn't have any of the stuff that we have because the people that really push the envelope in life are the people who look at a qualification and say, that's just some man-made institution that designed this qualification. If I'm a brilliant mind and I can go out and do something with my mind or my hands or I can just create, I don't need a piece of paper to tell me whether or not I can create. I know I'm creative. That's my identity. That's who I am. So, yeah, there's definitely like the professional side of like when you're in an interview and you have to justify what your qualifications are. But then there's also the like, man, if you're on the fence because you don't have a qualification, or man, you can't start a business because you didn't get a business degree. Like, no, that's not true. If that's the case, why are there so many successful immigrant entrepreneurs here in America?
It's very true.
Guarantee they showed up broke. They're probably second generation immigrants. Their families were probably broke. Their dad and mom probably worked 3 jobs to support their family because they didn't have qualifications. And then the kid's like, man, I don't want to live this life. And so they go out and just start creating, and they create massive value. They double down on themselves. They learn new skills, and that's what qualifies you. It's kind of like purification by fire. Like, you go through it, you face the heat, and you become better. You become purified. Just like gold or silver in a furnace. Like, it's constant purification. What do you think when someone says, what are your qualifications?
I've had this come up quite a bit. If there's any insinuation here, I'm going to give a twofold answer to this. I think I'm going to take kind of a perspective that you have. I think because we're all human, I think when somebody comes out with a jab, well, what are your qualifications, to get this done? I think a lot of times it's built up from a stem of jealousy and anger. And I'm not saying everybody who's jealous says that, but also at the same time, like most majority of people are, because for some reason they've built it up in their head that they need all these prerequisites to be able to get where you are. And then when you show up without those, it really makes people angry because they thought in their head it was harder.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I don't think it's necessarily about the difficulty. Now, there are definitely like things that are difficult to understand, like for instance, brain surgery and neuroscience and that kind of stuff. Like there are actual difficult tasks there. But I think a lot of things that people like are asking for your qualifications, quote unquote, I think it's just out of just point blank, they're trying to have a comeback for them showing up with nothing. That's kind of like my human notion of bringing out to that. I think a lot of people bring nothing to the table on the premise that they think they can't bring anything to the table, because they have to have all these prerequisites, and that's not true. I think you can come to the table with anything that you have to offer, anything that is value in any point. But a lot of people show up with nothing, and it's not because they're not capable. It's because they thought they weren't capable because they needed all this excess to qualify them to then bring something to the table.
Yeah.
And that's everything in life, man. Like, how many times have we had a point in our lives where we're building something great, per se this company, the amount of people that have been like, whoa, are you even a company? Or do you even know how to roast coffee? Like, and a lot of these people, they don't know how to roast coffee either.
Yeah.
They're just kind of saying that because they just want to pull something.
I'll double down on this. Not only do they not know how to roast coffee, more broad than that, they don't even know how to go start a business from scratch. Because most of the people that I've heard say these things to me are people that inherited a business or bought into a business because their daddy had money, whatever, or their daddy started the company and they just got to take over the helm.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely parts of that, and we're not trying to bash just on people who have had some type of inheritance or anything, but on the Pursuit podcast, the purpose of this is for you to take a part of this and run with it.
Yep.
What's great about this podcast and how I think it can really help you guys is because Bailey and I started out with nothing. We had a blank slate. And I'm sure you guys have heard, a little bit of our origin story. We try to put it out there a little bit more about our company. This company was literally started with like $2,000 in a garage, and we just had a dream that we wanted to put together.
Yeah.
And we wanted to scale a roastery and a coffee operation so that everybody across America, across the nation, can enjoy great coffee.
Yep.
And, a lot of people thought, oh, you need this qualification, that qualification, this qualification. You need to be a Q grader. You need to be, all this other stuff. And not realizing that we built, like in the beginning, we built the majority of this company with 2 high school interns that were part-time.
Yeah.
2 owners that believed in it, 2 high school interns that, 2 high school interns and a really nice computer is how we built most of this company.
Yep.
So when I go back to the qualifications side, what's your qualifications? Well, I think sometimes what qualifies you is the value that you bring. If people from West Coast to East Coast can recognize our coffee, I'd say we're probably qualified by the value we brought.
Yep.
And I'm not saying like we're better than everybody else. That's not true. But I'm just saying, like, if you're assessing your life and there are people in your life that think that you need all these qualifications to be something great one day, don't get me wrong. Experience it's amazing, and it'll make you fail less and succeed faster. But, there's still a point where you get on the road of entrepreneurship and there is no path. You literally have to take the machete and cut through the jungle as you're navigating, trying to get to Atlantis.
Yeah.
And that's like literally most of what we see here in our lives. And I think it's a great way for us to help you guys in the pursuit, because there's so many people out there who haven't done anything with what they have. Or they think they need 2 PhDs, they need all this stuff to get something done. And it's just not true. I think the fastest way to get qualified to what you want to do is just to work on it consistently every single day.
100%.
We have the resources today that no one had back in the 1800s with the computer and AI and automation and everything that we can have at the fingertips today. I think it's a really big head start than most people had even 30 years ago. We're in a world of a different platform.
Oh, yeah. Totally different ecosystem.
So, yeah, the question I probed, what are your qualifications? And there are some really condescending people out there, and I'm sure we'll find them, hitting down in the comments. But what I'd love to see is how many people. So if I told you to get qualified for what you think you need to do takes twice as long to actually do what you want to do, would you get qualified? You could spend 12 years in school, and if you really put your heart to it, that business idea, that athletics, you could probably get there in 2 years if you really put in hard work. So would you spend the 12 years? I don't know, man.
Depends. If you wanted to become a really, really skilled physician, or you wanted to become a lawyer, you want to become, professional engineer, there are rigorous requirements because of the stakes. These roles, you're dealing with people's lives. Am I going to be able to, keep people out of prison with my job? Or like a defense attorney, I guess is what I'm thinking. They need to know the laws, and so do
Yeah, I was kind of like taking it from the
that.
concept of like
traditional
worlds, like lawyers, healthcare, all that kind of stuff. Like, yes, you need, if I'm dying on a table and my brain is open, I need someone.
I'm no help. Like, dude,
right.
I can see half your brain, buddy. Hey, I'm out. Like,
I'm talking
out.
I'm talking from a sense of like 90% of all the occupations or businesses or dreams. I think I don't necessarily think now. I'm not saying that you don't need a qualification entirely. I think there's a level where people mix up qualification and higher education all the time.
Well, and here's one that always makes me chuckle. I am a certified life coach.
Yeah.
Who created the certification for life? And if you're a life coach out there, I'm sure you had to go through some stuff and learn techniques and all that. That's awesome. But for someone to wake up and just say, here's this like 4-year plan of how you become a life coach, sounds a little ridiculous because, I mean, I don't know, unless there's a super structured, once you go through this, you're going to know how to coach everybody in your life. I just don't see how that could be a certification, in my opinion. But I'm also me and weird.
Yeah, there's a lot more than just like stuff out there. But I would say, if you've built, here's my thought on that. If you say you're a certified life coach, which I'm not going to say whether I'm for or against it. I think a lot of people need help with life, so there's value there. I think if your clients give you great feedback by the value you've brought to them through what you do, I think you'll be just fine.
Well, and that's your certification.
Correct.
And I think, I guess what I was getting at is your experiences in your life and your experiences helping other people have a better life. That's more your qualification. Mm-hmm. That's more what I was trying to say is if you just go get a certification, it doesn't mean like you've even fixed your own life and you now like, oh, I got a piece of paper that says I can help you fix your life. Not necessarily. Like you still have to go out and like practice fixing people's lives. And I say fixing because it's, I think, the easiest word, but coaching people on like, hey, here's the steps you should take to improve your financial well-being or your fitness or your health. And yeah, if you haven't done it before, a piece of paper doesn't change that fact. That's the point I'm trying to make. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I think people that are condescending when they do bring these things up, I think it comes from a place of, the fear and jealousy, and pride, I think a lot of people that are, not a lot, but there are some successful people out there that think that, oh, I'm successful and nobody else can be. And so they're like condescending because of that. Mm-hmm. You're always going to have people that are not for you, but they're not really against you. They're just kind of in their own head, I think. And maybe they're saying it because their perspective is, why would you go down this really hard road that's super uncertain when you've got this like cushy thing right here that you can just show up every day, collect a paycheck, have good insurance, and not worry. Like, that was one of the experiences I had when I left corporate and was having a conversation. They were like, well, are you even health code certified? Like, they didn't even know the words for it. Like, have you even like talked to the FDA? And I was like, I'll pull up the papers right now, sweetheart. Like, absolutely. And then, where are you roasting this? Your house? Like, no.
Yeah, my garage.
No.
We're still there 4 years later.
We got a huge warehouse that we roast out of. Oh, man. Oh, that's cool. How much do you roast? Wow, we could do over a million pounds a year. And just deer in headlights because they can't even like understand what that looks like. So, yeah, I mean, I think we've all been there, but if you can handle it kind of cool, calm, collected, stay humble, like don't stoop to their level. Even if they are someone that you respect, like they're probably not trying to be condescending, but if it comes across that, just, or just say, hey, like, did you mean it like this? Or if it's someone you like, know and trust. But yeah, my other thought too is, and this is kind of taking it a little bit more spiritual, I think God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies who he calls. So that to me is more important. Like if God sent you and me on this mission to go build a coffee company, a roasting company, we're going to do it to the best of our abilities because that's just how we operate. Like we're not going to do anything half-heartedly. We're going to do it to a level of excellence. And that's what we're called to do. That's what you and I believe we're called to do. So like we're going to go do that and God will qualify us. And yeah, sure, like there are qualifications we need. Like we have to have the health department on our side. We have to have the FDA on our side.
The USDA.
Yeah,
we've got to have a compliant facility.
Exactly. Like
how we store stuff. There's a lot of code. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can't piss those people off and say, nope, we don't need to be qualified. Like, yeah, well, unless you want to get slapped with a bunch of fines and fees and potential jail time because you made a bunch of people sick. Like, hey, be my guest. Don't do that. That's not good. Go through the processes that you have to go through because they're there for people's protection and safety. And yeah, like if it's something like, oh man, I can't start a clothing company because I don't have a graphic design and website building degree, or like I'm not a website developer. I don't have this degree. I don't have this software, and it says here that I have to be a professional in industry to download the software. And like, wow, well, I guess I'll just stick to my job, working minimum wage, like unhappy, whatever. So, what
I would say is like go at it, man. Like what we're trying to get across is qualifications matter to a point, but then you get to a point where there is no internal one-way street to where you want to go in life, to success. And if, like, let's say you want to start a clothing company, or if you want to start, a service company washing windows or something, like, I think the best thing you can do is to just get started day one. Put in a little bit of time, figure out on the internet how to use a website free builder, start asking friends and family, get some good testimonials from people. And I wouldn't say charge right out of the gate, just get some work done and get some people's feedback. I think the best way that you can start to become something real one day is, I think in the beginning, everybody goes through a phase where like, you don't really know how to roast coffee yet, or you don't really know how to, do a clothing line, and of that nature, but you just got to start doing it. And with consistency, you'll eventually understand that qualifications that people think you need, they think you need like an educational qualification, and I would say it's more of a time qualification. How much time do you have invested in one specific topic or genre or niche that you're trying to go through? Yeah. What really qualified us was we started on a 1 kilo roaster. And to some of the people in the crowd that may not make sense, it basically was it's
like a tabletop roaster.
Small tabletop roaster. It only roasts 2 pounds every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But what qualified us, because we were using a smaller roaster than normal, we had to do 10 times the amount of batches.
Thousands of roasts.
Yeah.
I think when we
timed out of our Aleo bullet, we had like 3,000 batches run through that thing.
On just one of the two.
On one of the 2 units.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, and people are like, oh man, well, if I'm invested 10 minutes in 3,000 batches, that's a lot of time. And so that qualified us really fast.
Yeah. Well, and we were roasting into the wee hours of the morning trying to get stuff prepped for events that we were doing early on. So yeah, time, but like I think more granular than time is experiences over time.
Yeah.
Like the more experiences, the more touches you have over time, that's what qualifies you. Like if I did 1 sales call a month versus 10 sales calls a day, I'm going to have a lot more qualifications because of the experiences I've had doing hundreds of calls every year. So, I think the more, and it just comes down to experience qualifies you. What you do matters over time, and all work works. Like if you're working at the thing that you're trying to be really, really excellent at, just keep working on it. You're going to get better and better and better and better. Everybody sucks at the beginning. You're not going to be skilled at the beginning. That's why there's so much resistance when you first start. Those first 20 to 50 hours of whatever you're trying to learn how to do are not fun. They are the most strenuous, the most laborious, and you have so much like activation energy to go get started. That's why most people don't start. So I think if you can put that aside and really focus on, hey, this is why I'm doing this, because I believe this is the best thing for me, all that falls by the wayside, and you're able to get through those 20 hours, the 50 hours, the 100 hours, all the way up to the 10,000 hours, and then you're a master. Like, it's exactly what we had to do.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be haters, man. You just got to handle them with love.
Got to put the hater blockers on.
That's
and
right,
just
dude.
keep on going forward.
That's right. Just brew them a cup of coffee. And why do you think that way? I think it's hardest to handle as like a new business owner or a new entrepreneur, or even, you know, everybody expected you to go down this path and you've shifted 180 and you're going something totally different from what everybody expected. I think it's hardest to deal with the condescending comments and the negativity and the hate when it's someone super close to you, and like your parents, your siblings, your best friends, your aunts, uncles that you're close to, you know, whoever that you've like, you know, is in your inner circle that you know, love, and trust, and they know, love, and trust you, and they're like, oh man, like, you really think that's gonna work? Like, oh, good luck. And or they say, oh yeah, you know, I'm your biggest supporter, but they've bought one bag of coffee from you or something like that. You know, just hyperbolic situation there, but yeah, it's just interesting, those people, like, and that kind of goes back to, you know, the baggage conversation we had. There's going to be people in your life that are just kind of dead weight, and you just kind of, you don't have time for that.
I've kind of got a comment off of that, and it takes my mind back to the story of young David, from the story of David and Goliath. And if you know anything about kind of the background of the story, David was a shepherd, and he was out in the fields basically shepherding sheep. And all of his brothers were a little bit more masculine. They were part of the army, in Saul's army. They had just some like more skills and better professions than most people would think. And you know, my thought process goes back to when God called David into it, he knew David was still going to continue to be a shepherd, and he still called him there to be king and reign over all of Israel and Judah. And anyways, fast forwarding to the part where Goliath comes up from the Philistines, and they're at a stalemate in the battle because Goliath has put his spear out in the middle, and he was basically asking for someone to duel him. And everybody from Saul's army, including David's brothers, were incredibly fearful, and no one wanted to go up and duel this absolute specimen of a giant. And David was the only one who was willing to do what no one else would do, not because he thought he was more qualified, but because he believed in the God who called him to the platform that he knew he was already about to be in. Yep. And the biggest thing that I kind of get from this is, I'm sure once David got to the front lines and he saw his brothers that were there that were fearful, I guarantee they're like, David, go back home. What are you doing here? This is not a place for little wee men like you. You know, and I'm pretty sure they were like, well, what makes you think you can beat, you know, Goliath if I can't with all my armor and all of these qualifications of being a marksman, you know? And David just grabbed his sling and a couple of rocks, I think it was 5 rocks he grabbed, and went out and met Goliath for a duel. And he took down Goliath in this crazy feat that no one saw coming. It was probably one of the biggest underdog moments of history that we have documented. And in that moment, do you think he was thinking, when he had his sling and he was swinging it around, do you think he was thinking about all the qualifications he had? Or do you think he was really focused on doing the good work for the Lord? I think the only thing that came through his mind was probably the focus that this guy is in between me and my God. And so I need to tackle whatever's in front of me. And I'm sure the barks he got from his brothers on the front line, oh, David, what are you doing, man? Go home. You're going to get yourself killed, you know. And they were like the, quote, closest people to him. And that still didn't stop him. So I think maybe what I would give off to you guys from the Pursuit podcast is there's going to be times in your life where there are people in between you and what God's work needs to be done in your life. And there's got to be a point where you're going to look back at the crowd behind you and say, what are your qualifications? Or are you going to look forward and say, this is what God's called me to, so I'm going to go forth, and it doesn't matter what the price. Yep. And David didn't really realize that, you know, he had faith in God that it would happen. But he probably didn't think it was going to happen the first shot, or he probably didn't think, you know, he was going to go without a scratch on his body. He just knew there was something in front of him and his God and his calling, and he tackled it. And so I think that's a really big thing for us to take away from this, is the closest people to you are not really far away from you on the front lines, and they're telling you that you can't do this, or what are your qualifications, what are this and that. But if it's in between you and operating under the calling that God has for your life, I think there's nothing else that matters. And I think you need to get those stones in that sling and go forth. And so that's kind of my take on it, because there's a lot of things in my life too where we've had people, you know, say, oh, you're not qualified, Quentin. You went to business school, you got into graphic design, but, you know, I never finished my 4-year degree. And that was by choice. For me, it wasn't worth the price to pay to finish it, just to get a piece of paper to tell the world that I can do what I'm already doing. Yep. You know, and if I had gone down that path, it would have cost me $80,000 more, and it would have cost me another 3 years of progress that I'm 3 years further now. And I'm not saying everybody should go down this line. I'm just saying my road to where I'm at today didn't necessarily require a degree for me to be successful in coffee. Right. What mattered was the value I brought to people, the calling God put on our lives, and being able to roast good coffee. Like when it all came down to it, we've had close to 6,000 roasts under our belt now. And it's growing rapidly every single day. And I don't even do majority of the roasts anymore. A lot of it's done by the computer because we automate. And but I had to know my stuff and understand what coffee I wanted that is developing, so that when it comes out of that tray, it tastes the exact same every time. Yeah. And that comes through experience, and that comes through repetition. And then when you get that, you can tell a computer, hey, this is what I want. These are the recipes that I have, and I want you to mimic it. And it does it without a bark, without a complaint. It just does what it says. And I think there's a point in your life where qualifications will only get you so far. There are battles that we're embarking on right now as a company where even higher knowledge and higher education cannot take us. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting in the midst of what I would call a plain in front of me. And some people can see it from the perspective of a desert because you have everything that's free, right? So you can either see it from the perspective of the desert or the perspective of the jungle, and understanding that there's fruit right in front of you. And in my thought process in this is there's not necessarily a path in the jungle, but there's not necessarily a path in the desert either. But it's all the perspective you take when you tackle these ideas. You know, you can either go without resources and just think, oh, the freedom's going to kill me, Or you can say the freedom allows me to harvest more than I've ever been able to harvest before because of the vast amount of fruit in front of me. Mm-hmm. I think it's all perspective when it really comes down to it. And I love the freedom, because then if I have a machete in hand, I know I'm harvesting coconuts, I'm harvesting bananas, whatever is in front of me, because that's what's in front of me. Because the freedom that I have, the wide open plain. And so we're just tackling it every single day. So, yeah.
100%, man. I think the freedom and the faith, like going back to your David comments, I mean, this dude had the faith to go down to the stream and pick up the smooth rocks, knowing, hey, I don't need the king's armor and his sword and all this stuff. I've got these rocks and the tool that I am a master of, because I've spent 10,000 hours whipping this sucker in the fields while I'm with all my sheep and protecting my sheep and my flock. So, yeah, I think faith is a huge, huge aspect. The belief that you can do it, the belief that what you're embarking on will work, and that allows you, when you have the freedom, to make the right decisions of, this is the highest leverage, best opportunity thing in front of me. So, and that's a skill, developing that ability to identify, is this a 10x move or a 2x move? Is this something that I'm just trading my time for dollars, or am I coaching a team to build a system that will just continue to grow itself? And I can step back and, not like a evil puppeteer type of thing, but hey, this team, let's move in this direction. This team, let's move in that direction to achieve the common goal. So, and that's the part that we're at right now and we're working on. So it's really, really, really exciting. And there's going to be a lot more people that are condescending to us as we make some pretty bold swings and launch some really cool stuff. So, yeah, bring it on.
I love the attitude. It's forefront, ready, always ready.
It's got to be. There's no other way, dude.
Well, do you have any last comments for this episode as we wrap up?
I just, there's always going to be people out there that are against you. And yeah, they're just trying to put a lid on what your potential is, because they've deep down put a lid on their own potential. So don't succumb to it. Don't fall victim to it. Don't give in to what they're saying, but double down on you and just trust your gut. Your brain will kind of play tricks on you when you're in the midst of some hardship, because it wants to self-preserve. But if you know deep, deep, deep down that what you're doing is exactly what you're called to do, you're going to be just fine. So keep pressing into it. Keep going. Don't stop, because you don't want to be like that image of the two miners where the guy was like an inch from gold and the dude that just kept going, and he made it that last inch and got the gold. So yeah, don't quit.
That's a good word. All right, well, we'll wrap it up for this week. Just want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening to another episode of the Pursuit Podcast. If you want to find more resources, you can follow us on our social medias, or you can visit our website. We have tons of news and tons of stuff that are constantly being uploaded there, so that you can find more episodes and other stuff. All right, well, we'll see you guys next week. Catch you later.
Peace.